Welcome! My name is Kelly Anderson, and this is Fanimated, the animation fan podcast where we get a chance to geek out about our favorite animated media. Jake Annis is joining me today to discuss Re:Zero, Starting Life in Another World, the 2016 anime that turned the isekai genre on its head and is finally getting a second season later this year. But before we dive in, I wanted to thank all of our Fanimated patrons over on Patreon. You can join the crew at patreon.com/fanimated to vote for upcoming episode topics and hear bonus content, all for as little as $1 a month. Thank you for your support. We could not make this show without you. Now, we have a lot to dive into, so spoiler warning for the first season of Re:Zero, and let's get started and let's get animated.
Currently sending you a picture of my recording setup because I'm super excited about my headset, and yeah.
Dope! That's so awesome! Plus, I love the little cat ears. That's the best. Oh my gosh.
I waited weeks to get those because I ordered them from Amazon and then they never showed up and I had to reorder them. Speaking of great transition.
Great transition. Yes. Well, Jake, I'm so happy to have you back on the podcast to talk about Re:Zero.
I am also very excited because this is an anime that is very very near and dear to my heart, and also very polarized in my emotions for various reasons. But those are my favorite kinds of media.
Awesome. Yes, and it's been a long time coming, and we were going to do this episode earlier this year because the second season was supposed to...
Oh, we had such high hopes.
Oh, yes, I know. Supposed to come out this spring, and it got delayed until summer. So crossing my fingers that it doesn't get delayed again so that we can finally watch the second season after 4 years of waiting.
Oh my gosh. I suppose we should say, I mean, I guess it goes without saying going forward, literally anything we talk about is going to be ridiculous spoilers because, I mean, even after watching episode 1, it totally changes your viewpoint of what you're going to be watching.
Absolutely. So you have been warned. Please just go watch it yourself and come back and listen to us. It is craziness after craziness after craziness every single episode, it's phenomenal.
Mm-hmm.
Jake, what was your first experience with this anime? How did you find out about it and all of that? Because I'm pretty sure you're the one who recommended this one to me.
Yeah, I believe I was recommended it by a coworker who I had nothing in common with except that we had both watched Tokyo Ghoul.
Mm-hmm.
Like literally nothing in common with. And they were like, oh, you know what else is a really good anime? And I was like, what? And he says, Re:Zero. And so I had him like type it in because I had no idea how to spell it. So I had him type it in on Crunchyroll and I started watching it. And I have to admit, like, it's such a great hook, like right away in the opening. It had me right away.
Good. And so were you watching it while it was still releasing? Or was the whole season out already?
I'm trying to remember because I feel like I was watching it while the episodes were still coming out, and I want to say that more confidently. I'm pretty sure I was watching it while the episodes were coming out because I remember waiting a long time in between episodes, and especially towards the latter episodes, getting really ramped up for what was going to happen. And then the final episode that was going to come out came out, and I didn't know it was going to be the last one for a while. So I remember waiting for another episode, and then just slowly it dawned on me that there wasn't going to be anything else for a long time. I was crushed.
Especially with this one, and it just ends, and you're like, but wait, but what? But there, what?
It's such a weird time to like break.
Yes, it is. It is. It's so weird. Um, and we'll get to that. Um, so yeah, so that's super cool that you just kind of stumbled into it and then got to, keep up with it. Um, because I remember you had recommended this to me, and it took me a while to get to it, and then I watched it all, and I I was frustrated. I was beyond frustrated because um I like it took me a really long time to get into it, and honestly even rewatching it, I like it even better. Like it's one of those that it just gets better with every viewing.
Yes.
So Jake, do you want to give us the basic premise of what makes this show so unique?
Yeah. So, I mean, the story follows main character Subaru in his adventure, I guess. Like I said, episode 1 hooks you right off the bat. It jumps back and forth between scenes of some sort of struggle. You can't really make out what's going on, and scenes of Subaru visiting his local general store and picking out manga and cup noodles, and it's like 3 in the morning, obvious shut in.
Yes.
And he steps outside of the general store and blinks his eyes, and in that moment he is transported to this fantasy world of Lagunica. And like that's it, that's all you get. Like he in that moment embodies the audience of what just happened. um so he spends that first day just trying to like acclimate himself, trying to figure out like, is this like a video game? Am I like the protagonist? Do I have magic
Mhm.
powers? All answers point to no.
Yes.
um and eventually eventually he meets a half elf woman who he offers help to. She had something stolen from her. By the end of the first episode, they have both, something bad has happened to them. And this, okay, I want to put a pin in that because I have a big issue with Subaru in the first couple episodes, and I'll get to that. But
Great.
we as the audience see everything go black, and Subaru, kind of blinks his eyes again, and he's back at the beginning of that day talking to this like cart salesman on the side of the road. So us as the audience can kind of intuit that he's in a bit of a loop now. Every time he
Hmm.
dies, he resets to a specific point. But he doesn't seem to understand that for like so long.
Yes.
um but that is the main premise of the show, is that
Hmm.
Subaru is cursed somehow to constantly um
Return by death.
yeah, return by, that's what he calls it, return by
Hmm.
death. When he dies, he goes back to a fixed point, well, semi-fixed point. And then he has the chance to relive that time and potentially do things differently. Bit of a Groundhog Day situation.
Yes. And it this okay, there are a lot of isekai out there, and isekai is a subgenre of anime where the very similar setup happens, where there's usually a nerdy kid from our world dies and gets reborn into this other life fantasy world, usually with like RPG elements, and becomes the hero of this land or whatever, um, every otaku's dream. And then this one comes and it is like, nope, Subaru doesn't get any sort of special, weapon or
Yep.
magic or anything. The only thing he can do is like die and come back, come back, which is like,
And oh my gosh, I can't stress that enough. Like he just doesn't get it for so long.
yes.
Like it's like almost the end of like the second part, which is a whole episode. The first episode, air quotes, is in 2 parts, and it's like the end of the second part of the first episode that he like starts to put it together, that he's resetting and not just living some strange sequence of events. And it's just, oh my gosh, I hate it. It's so excruciating to watch. It's
No.
not, it's good, but like me
Yeah.
as a person, I'm like, come on, figure it out. It's so obvious.
I would argue that a lot of this show is excruciating to watch. Both in
Oh my gosh, let's talk about that, because that's definitely something that I wanted to talk about.
Great. Let's go. I would say that both the action and violence, and also the excruciatingness of Subaru, so many of Subaru's actions, just makes me want to reach into the screen and shake somebody. But yeah, what sticks out to you the most?
Well, for one, like absolutely how like jarring and gruesome the violence is, because it just happens, and there's something very real and very raw about that, because you're one of the scenes that super sticks out to me is like right away when he's bargaining for the insignia to bring back the woman that he's bartering against, who we find out later to be this hired assassin. Um, that entire sequence, that fight between Rom and Felt, and I don't remember her name. I just know she's called like the Disemboweler or something. um, but that whole fight was so like bloody, and it like it all happens so fast, and you go from like them making like literal genital jokes and like talking about beer
Mm-hmm.
to people getting like their throats slashed open, and
Yeah,
it just goes from 0 to 100 in a second.
absolutely. This is not rated PG, everybody. Gore warning.
No.
I don't know where I'd rate it though, on a scale of like 0 to, I don't. Yeah, it's like it's probably up there with like Attack on Titan levels, I think, or even more so,
Yeah,
I think.
there is an anime that I have in my head that I know I would put at a 10
Oh
at
yeah.
like the end of the spectrum for gory anime,
Mm-hmm.
and it's definitely not that, but I would say it's definitely above. Like if you've seen Another, which is also a phenomenal anime,
Hmm.
um, I would say it's kind of on that level, because it's not apologetic. It doesn't try and hide and baby the audience. And stuff happens.
Yes, stuff happens. Um, I will have to check that one out as well. Um, and in ReZero 2, like it's definitely, I think, a valid part of the experience, because the whole show is just like Subaru dealing with, just he suffers so much, and he like has to, like, every time he goes through so many things, both like physically and psychologically, and has to like keep getting back up again, and it just sounds like the worst punishment imaginable.
Yeah, it definitely seems like a curse.
Yes, it is definitely. um and they and so having such stark contrast to the, the good things about like the people he meets, and then they are brutally murdered in some way or fashion, or he is, and it's just it's a whirlwind as an audience member, um and is, just one of the things that makes it such a compelling watch, really.
Yeah, and I think one of the, I mean, talking about suffering, because it is such a big part of not only the story but Subaru's development as a character.
Mm-hmm.
Um, we talk about tropes, because you were talking about lots of other anime that follow the same kind of plot,
Yes.
and we see in anime there are character tropes and there are story tropes, especially in a lot of the shonen anime, where we look at like Naruto and One Piece, where we have a main character whose main ability is just determination, like their
Mm-hmm.
sole purpose and power is they never give up. And then we have protagonists, um, like in My Hero Academia, where their story arc is built from them overcoming their inability to succeed, or their gaining power in order to overcome their ineptitude. And Subaru definitely is following that same um, storyline. Eventually, he gets the tenacity to use his restarts and return by death in order to build himself up and become stronger, to try and um, save the people around him, because that's part of the psychological suffering, is he has to watch these people die over and over, and he himself is suffering so much. And then it's all reset and he is a changed person, but everybody else is back to where they were, with zero progress and zero memory of what happened.
And that is what, and this show does such a good job of putting the audience in that mindset too, of like, because this is what I had a really hard time with when I first watched it, is just how frustrating that part of it is. How frustrating it is to see characters interact with Subaru and like have character development and relational development, and then see it all get flushed down the drain when he resets. And that is so frustrating. And it's frustrating for him too. And he eventually comes to the conclusion of, even though they don't remember it, he does, and so it still happened. So that's kind of like his way of reconciling with it. And honestly, it took me until like the rewatch to like really let that sink in. And so if you haven't seen it, I would recommend going in and just being aware of like how everything is about the characters. Like, it can be frustrating to some, to me it was, like, that the plot keeps getting set back, but it every single piece is important, not only for Subaru's understanding of the world, but also like our understanding of the characters. And we get to see then so many different avenues and pathways and choices that these characters would have made, which just turns everyone into more well-rounded individuals. And so I just love the character writing in this show. It's phenomenal.
Yes. So I feel like I should ask this polarizing question for anybody who's seen ReZero. Emilia or Rem?
So, okay, so short answer, Rem.
Okay.
Subaru is he is a great main character because I don't like him.
No, I totally understand.
Yes, he is he has a lot of facets to him, and he's learning very painfully slowly, but he is very self-centered. He gets into this world, like you said, and is assuming that everything is like an isekai and that he's going to be the hero. And it turns out, no, he's just himself, and he has to learn to become an actually better person. And so when he meets Emilia, he immediately is just like, oh, well, I deserve you because I'm the hero. And yes. I absolutely hate that. I hate it. And I don't think and so the whole show, that's his only motivation, is just to be with Emilia. And it's so dumb, I guess, for lack of better words. But with Rem, like, they have such a connection, and not gonna lie, episode 18 is my favorite episode, as I think for a lot of people it is. And like, cause they are actually like doing things together. Like, Emilia and him barely share screen time.
Yeah, he spends so much more time. Yes.
Yeah. So would Rem also be your answer?
Yeah. Well, I mean, if I can throw in a third, Roswell.
Yes, always.
Roswell is by far my favorite character in the entire show. Roswell owns this mansion that eventually Subaru and Amelia go to. Roswell is Amelia's sponsor. Is that correct?
Yes. Yes, I believe so.
Yeah. So um, uh, they end up going to the mansion, which Roswell owns, and he is this this magical sexual force of nature. Um, he's just such a wonder, and every scene that he's in
Yes.
is made better because he is in it.
Agreed.
But you get these little, like, you get these moments where there's a break from the jokes and the humor and the lightheartedness, and you see just how powerful and serious and intense he is as a character, and it just deepens his character so much. I don't know, I just love him as a character.
Yes. I love that. And he really is. I hope we get to see even more of him in season 2. And I would agree. Every scene he's in is just better. It's just better. um, yes.
So who is your favorite character
My
then?
favorite character out of all of them,
Yeah.
Puck.
Okay, sure. Yes.
Yeah, Puck is Amelia's, what do they call him? He's like a familiar kind of, but not, he's like a spirit, okay? And
Yeah.
he protects her and has a contract with her is how they describe it. And he's just like this cute little cat thing that like comes out and says hello. But
With a
then,
satchel.
but with a satchel, and he's so cute. And he just loves Amelia and is there to protect her. But then, like in one of the timelines, everything goes wrong and Amelia dies, and he turns into this giant monster that's gonna like turn the whole world to ice. Like it's crazy.
Yes.
And so he's obviously a very, very powerful being, and it really makes me wonder more about him. Like I want to know more about this contract he has with Amelia and like where he came from.
Yeah. Who's your least favorite character then?
Well, like I don't like Subaru as a person, but I like him as a character because he's interesting at least, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
I would say Priscilla because she's a jerk. um, there's this like there's this running for the ruler of the land because I don't know how this works or why they have to have some sort of popularity contest as to like who's gonna be the queen or whatever. But
Yeah.
Amelia is one of these candidates, and so is Priscilla, and she is basically your typical like mean girl.
Mm-hmm.
And wants everyone to serve her. She's had several husbands already who have all died mysteriously. And yeah, so she's just the worst. Who would be your least favorite character?
Guys, for sure. Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely, hands down.
Hands down. Not even a second thought. I hate him so much.
What makes you hate him so much? Just everything?
He makes me so uncomfortable. Like every
Every scene.
everything he says, the way that he says it, the way that he moves, the things that he does. And
Yeah.
that last one specifically, the things that he does.
The things that he does. The way he moves. Yeah, you're right. I would agree. Absolutely. But at least he's interesting.
Oh yeah, sure.
You don't see a character like him every day.
No, I guess if we're running it off of that, then he's definitely the best character in the show.
But no, yeah, I would agree. He's absolutely. It's just like you're. Yeah, it's just creepy. He's just creepy, and he is part of the witches cult. And So there's this other whole thing going on with like this witch, and it's like you're pretty sure, and I don't know if they explicitly say this, but basically the witch has cursed Subaru, so we know that there's that connection.
Yes.
And we just don't know that much about her. And so there's this witches cult, and there are like leaders of the cult who are all like about the 7 deadly sins, which is very anime. And
yes. There is an anime actually like that.
There are lots of anime that have 7 deadly sins.
Oh, I was just saying there's an anime called The 7 Deadly Sins.
Oh, you're talking about that, yeah, which is also an interesting anime. Very different,
Yes.
but yes. But yeah, so he's like this sloth one or something, and but it's just. I'm just trying to describe how creepy he is, but it's just like it's slothful. Everything's slothful, or I don't know. It's so crazy. It's good.
He's just something.
He is something
to behold.
Something to behold for sure.
Since we're talking about the witch and the curse, one of the integral parts of the story that makes it so tragic is. Part of the curse is that Subaru cannot tell anyone about it.
Yes, thank you. Yeah, that is a huge piece. And whenever he tries, he basically has like a heart attack. and
he has like physical, like debilitating pain.
Yes. And it's interestingly, he does use that to his advantage sometimes. Because whenever he does that, like the smell of the witch is on him more, and then like things will come after him. So he's basically the whole time he just plays as the bait for everything because
yes,
like with the season ends with there's this white the dogs
and the whale.
The white whale. They have this big battle against the white whale, which is this also terrifying flying monster whale that will make people forget
from Pinocchio, but flying
in the air, and also like doubles itself, and then you're screwed, and makes people forget you even existed, which is terrifying. Yeah, and it is also connected to the witch cult in some way. I don't know. I don't remember. So Subaru can't tell people about the curse, which it isolates him even further into his psychological trauma.
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely.
Because then there's situations he gets himself into where people ask him to explain himself, like, how do you know X thing? And we've never met before. And like, where did you get X, Y, and Z? And he can't just be like, oh, well, you see, I've done this already and then died and come back. So we've already met and had a whole thing together, but now you don't know that.
Right. Which is frustrating as an audience member, and also, obviously frustrating for Subaru, that all of these things have happened and then he can't explain himself at all. And this show is just full of like so many little details and moments, and I just want to say, like, it really is like a very well written structural, like, time weaving narrative. Like, not everyone can do a good like time travel type story because it is complicated, but it gets messy. But this does a very, very good job. And then rewatching it again, I'm gonna say it again, like, it was very helpful to kind of go from that perspective and know what's going on a little bit better. So when he like does something successfully, air quotes, then he like gets a new like save point, a new start where he goes back to. And so each of those is basically like its own little arc. So there's that shed, at the beginning, the trader place. And then there's the mansion. He'll like wake up there. Which of the arcs, which of the sections? Because like I'm pretty sure this covers like 3 or 4 different arcs, just the first season. Which of those is your favorite?
I think my favorite would have to be the mansion arc because, I mean, it has most of my favorite characters in it, and most of Subaru's internal development happens there. He like comes to more grips with his situation. He has to let go a little bit of his selfish and lazy nature and learn a bit more about other people and do stuff for other people for the sake of it. Um, there's like some good plot development stuff that happens. A lot of stuff gets set up for moving forward. I think the mansion arc kind of encapsulates his a lot of his struggles of being put into a new world completely on his own with nothing very well, like learning the language,
Yeah.
trying to make friends, trying to make it look like you're not actually the bad guy by showing up completely unannounced with like weird situations. Beatrice is there and she's hilarious.
Yes. Oh, Beatrice. How could I forget Beatrice? I scratch everything. Beatrice is my favorite character. She is so like over it with Subaru, and yet Subaru like always able to find her library. Like she has this power that she can like make any door in the mansion the door to the library, and Subaru can always find it. Like it is hilarious, and she gets so upset.
She exists in this pocket dimension library that can only be accessed by one door in a giant mansion. It like hundreds and hundreds of doors. And somehow he just bumbles his way into it all the time. She can't get away from him.
And she ends all of her lines with, "I suppose. You're a nuisance, I suppose. I will leave, I suppose."
There's another anime trope, characters that end their sentences with a word or a phrase.
Yes, it's brilliant. Oh, it's so funny.
What about you? What's your favorite arc?
I really like the end with the white whale because this is where he has like one of his lower points of just he feels like he can't succeed at all, so why try? And then eventually and we can talk about episode 18, and Rem helps them kind of get back into the mindset of like I have to keep getting back up and trying, and then it's just very satisfying when he actually like gets on the right path and gets everyone together and like unifies all of these people to go fight the white whale, and it's just very great.
Well,
everything goes well, and almost, but basically.
Yes. As long as you are a main character, everything goes well.
Yes.
I will say that arc does have one of my least favorite scenes where I do remember actually like yelling and having to stop watching. And it was the scene where, like you said, he and Rem have such a great connection. They have so much more in common. They spend more time together. They're more in sync. And there is this moment of, I don't remember who instigates it, but there's a very obvious profession of affection. And Subaru's basically like, yeah, but I'm in love with Amelia for some reason, I guess. And that's just it then. And I'm like, how dare you? And then Rem, the beautiful, like, wholesome person that she is, she's just like, that's okay. I still care about you, so I'm still going to be with you and help you. And I'm like, oh, no.
Oh my gosh. It's so frustrating. It's so frustrating. Okay, so this episode 18 is seriously the best. It's like okay, this show is very action oriented. It is very I mean, it's got some great fight scenes. It's obviously, like we said, gory and crazy, and there's just craziness happening all the time. This episode is mostly just two people standing there in the same spot for 20 minutes. But it is so phenomenal. Both, like, directorially, like, it is staged so well, like, because even though they're just standing there, it's, like, done in a way that's really, really, really good. And the whole show is. But, okay, where to start? Subaru basically asks Rem to, like, run away with him because he's sick and tired of everything. And,
yeah, it's not a real profession of affection. It's just a way out.
Exactly. And so Rem, even though that's what she wants, she says no because he's not smiling, you know, or whatever. Like, she can tell that that's not what he actually wants. And basically Subaru ends up totally just bashing himself and is like, I am the worst. I'm the lowest of the low. I'm a horrible human being. Like,
and the audience is like, yes.
yes. Yep.
This is true.
This is true. Thank you for finally acknowledging it. And Rem is like, and is telling him good things about him that he doesn't believe. And I do like that she's like, hey, you need to see, like, the Subaru that I see, because, like, you know, the Subaru in her eyes is a hero, and that's what she says, and she's just the sweetest. And then, but he's still just like, what? Like, no, but she helps him, you know, kind of restart, and which is like, oh, it's ReZero. And so she's like, well, if you're frustrated that you don't have anything, like you haven't gotten anywhere, then let's just start right here. Start from zero. Start over. And this can be
roll credits
your
there
start.
for name. You got it.
Right in the got it. Nailed the title. I do always love that in shows or books or whatever. And
Me too.
When you finally realize that this is why it's called the title, and you're like, oh yes.
They said it. They said the thing.
They said the thing. And so it's a really beautiful scene. And like you said, Rem, like, pours her heart out, and Subaru is such an idiot because he's just like, actually, no. Sorry. But then they're still friends because Rem still loves him, and I don't know. It's yeah, I'm sorry. Subaru and Amelia have no chemistry. They don't. It's not existent.
Well, just Amelia has no chemistry. She doesn't have any chemistry to share, but...
Truth. She's very one note and plain.
Yes, she is.
Yes. And I don't know. She is half elf, and apparently that's like being an elf is a bad thing, apparently, in this world. And
I thought it was just being a half elf that was a bad thing.
Was it half elf
because,
specifically?
Because she's a half elf with silver hair, which is the exact description of, like, the evil witch.
Yes. Right. So maybe it's just something that has come out.
I think it's all those things combined.
All of those things combined. Maybe she just doesn't express emotion ever. I don't know. So yeah, episode 18 is just a phenomenal episode, and it's my favorite. And I think it's just really well done and wonderful. And I do think that, like, with the White Whale arc, I have some hope for Subaru because he's getting there. He's getting there.
Yeah.
So, after the White Whale, where Subaru professes his love to Amelia and is like, well, Rem had... he was like, Rem expressed her love for me, but that's the way I feel about you. And then it ends with Amelia going like, who is Rem? And then it's like, wait, what? I'm sorry? You can't just have this scene be like this. And so that's like kind of where season 2 is supposed to kick off. And even in the season 2 trailer, you see a whole bunch of bodies on the ground, and you see that Rem is on the ground and everyone's dead. Not the first time they've died, granted,
Right.
but
Yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean anything.
right, because he could die and then they'll be fine eventually. But and then there are these other characters like sipping tea, so they're obviously gonna be an issue, I would assume. What are you most wanting from season 2?
Um, I think as much as I hate Betelgeuse, I do want more of the cult because they are like such an interesting antagonist to the story, because you think that the
Mm-hmm.
story is going to be about one thing and that the struggles against Subaru are purely internal, and then all of a sudden these dudes show up and actually start torturing and killing people, and you're like, oh wait,
Mm-hmm.
what is why? And things are starting to converge with like the choosing of like the next queen empress person, and the cult seeming to have some involvement and like wanting to stop it or choose who it is. So I'm excited to see more of like what the deal with the cult is about.
Mm-hmm.
More than anything, though, what I'm excited about in season 2 is um, more plot twists, just like yanking the rug out from under us, um, and more of that haunting vocal trill they put anytime
mm.
something like that happens. Like that, oh my god, when you said the point where Amelia says who's Rem at the end of season 1, immediately in
Uh-huh.
my head all I could think was where, and I was like, oh,
Yes, that's exactly it. Yeah,
oh.
the sound is so good. It's everything about this show just really gets you on the edge of your seat. It's a thriller for sure.
It's a lot. It's a lot. So like be prepared to either be super invested or just like give up a lot of like emotion during
Yes.
it, because it's going to take a lot to get through, but it's so worth it. It's so good. It's just a lot.
It's it is. It's just a lot. And yeah, it's worth it to see, I think, Subaru's development, although it does feel like a slow burn development.
Yeah,
And
but I mean that's life, right?
true. It's so true. And I appreciate that, it's not this guy who has everything right off the bat. He's not super OP. He's not Kirito from Sword
Yes.
Art Online. He actually has to, Subaru actually has to, like, figure out what's going on. And like we mentioned before too, he actually has to figure out, like, oh, how do I write and read in this language? Oh, how do I, like, what he has to understand the politicals goings on. He just doesn't know this world and actually has to, like, learn it. So it's
Yeah.
very refreshing.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
I also, I'm just very interested in knowing, like, I just want to know more about this curse that Subaru has, and like
Mm.
who, like, why does the witch want him there? Like, how did he even get there? Like, why
Yeah.
why just why? That's my big question. Like, why him? Why is he there? What does the witch want with him? Because I feel like, and why are there only certain paths that are accepted? You know what I mean? Like, for
Mhm.
him to
Yeah,
get to
why
where
is it at what causes a successful checkpoint, as it were? Like why is it that only certain
yes.
avenues will allow him to progress?
Yes, exactly. What? Because what is he being led towards? Is what I want to know. Because he clearly has to go a specific way, and I want to know where that is and why.
Mhm.
Mm-hmm.
My biggest question regarding the curse is more of like a conspiratorial one of At what point did he start his time in the other world? What was the inciting moment? Because when the show starts, um, it shows the scene of him and Emilia dying and holding hands in congruence with him at the corner store shop. And he
Mm-hmm.
says, "I'm going to protect you, or I'm going to save you." And then he opens his eyes, and he's in the fictional world. And I don't know if that was meant to be a literal um, thing happening at the same time, or if it was meant to be literally a joke, because he even makes a comment
Mm.
like in the beginning of the episode, "Oh yeah, this is where they hook you in," because he's reading a freaking like manga in the corner store. But
Yes.
I have this conspiracy theory that like the point of the show that we as the audience begin viewing is not the beginning of Subaru's journey in Lagunica.
Interesting. I like this. I love this. Wow. Okay, okay. Solid.
Because like in a
I
cycle,
uh-huh.
like where does that, like where is the beginning? You know, if we're constantly seeing him die, go back, die, go back, die, go back, what's to say that that hasn't already been happening and we're only seeing it from this point forward?
Right. And so maybe Subaru isn't aware of all of them, or
Yeah, like maybe that's part of the curse. I mean, we've already established that like the curse can control what he can and can't say,
mm-hmm.
and how he how his life progresses. So what's to say that it also couldn't affect his memory and placement in the world? You know?
Right. I mean, there could be so much more about the curse we don't know, like in terms of like what the terms are. um,
Right.
there could definitely be more to it. You've got my brain a turning now. The other very important thing that I think needs to be addressed in season 2 is can Subaru wear anything but his tracksuit? Yes, he just has this horrible, awful, ugly tracksuit that he wears, and I know that's like his thing, but no.
Well, yeah, and it's like it's another anime trope. It's well, I mean, it's any animated show, any cartoon, you know, whatever. The main characters
Hmm.
have their one outfit. I mean, freaking Scooby Doo, you know. Um,
Right.
but I mean, you do see like the characters in the show change clothes and outfits. I mean, to an extent, you do see them wear different things. And I mean, there are
Hmm.
scenes where Subaru does take off his tracksuit, but at no point does he get new clothes. Like they go
Yes.
to these regal meetings with like heads of state and important people, and everyone is dressed to the nines, and he's there wearing his like Umbro tracksuit and tennis shoes with like his messy hair. And it's like
Oh
like
man.
does no one just like kind of like touch him up a little bit and go like, "Hey, put this on, like you're representing us."
Right. And it's just that he does wear other things, like he wears his like butler uniform, and
Yes.
and so I just wonder, like, why don't you just like stick with that, like why do you go back to your tracksuit? Why do you I know it's not important, but
Comfort is
maybe it
key.
is important. Maybe there's a theory there. I don't know.
Maybe that's why he's cursed.
Maybe that's why he's cursed. It's all because of the tracksuit. Yes. Yes. Yeah, I wanted to say that the anime is based off of a light novel by, I'm going to try my hardest with this name, Tape Nagatsuki. I'm going to go with that. And an interesting part, because I have not read this, I don't usually read the light novels or mangas that anime are based off of. But apparently, like the pain and trauma that Subaru feels when he does return by death is like even more prominent and expressed in the original source material, and I still feel like this show gives a pretty good like showing of that. But I thought it was an interesting point to make that it is even more so apparently in the light novel expressed that it's really really painful for Subaru to return by death. And I think that's a good point because you think, oh, if he can just return by death, well, if anything ever goes wrong, he can just like jump off a cliff
He can
and
just
it'll be
die.
fine.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, yes, and what a great example.
Like, I mean, granted, he does do that once. He jumps off a cliff and
Right, that's what I was saying, like jumping off a
yes,
cliff, like he does do that.
he does do that. He does do that, but it just significant meaning that
Yeah.
like it's obviously hard for him to do that.
Yeah, I mean death is still real and painful, and he doesn't know if like he has a limited amount of resets, like what death is
Mm-hmm.
going to be the final death, and so he can't
Mm-hmm.
just run around getting stabbed or bludgeoned or crushed or tortured to death, because it does still suck. He does still feel it. He does still die.
Right. Exactly. And that it just would not be a great experience. And I don't know. I have not counted how many times he has
His
died in
death
the
count.
anime already. His death count is high. Oh, poor Subaru. As much as I dislike him, I still feel bad for him.
Yeah, I'd say two of my least favorite deaths are um the I suppose the second time that hold on, I pulled up her name. Elsa, the assassin. Um
Yes.
the second time that she kills him when he's like it's just him and Ram and Felt in the
Mm-hmm.
shop, and he is literally bleeding out on the floor, and she like, oh, she's the worst. She's so creepy. But
Mm.
um that whole internal monologue of him realizing what's happening and like not wanting to die and feeling the pain and feeling the cold and
Yeah.
like being completely helpless. It's so hard to watch. It's just so
Uh,
raw and real, and it's just ugh.
yes. To the whole every time he dies, but that it's just like especially since it's at the beginning and you're still just like
Getting
no, this
into it.
is
Yeah.
you're getting into it. You're not quite as numb to it as you will eventually get, but and neither is he. um, that is a really painful one for sure.
Yeah.
Another interesting tidbit I thought was interesting was that the writers of the anime who were adapting it had to go back and rewrite a lot of sections to make Subaru less cool. Like they would write him as like a cool kid, and then they'd be like, oh wait, no, Subaru has to be like because he is just like this wimpy turd. So I thought that was
I mean,
interesting.
that's
That they
got to
had
be
to.
hard, like writing a fiction that you were in control
Mm-hmm.
of, and you're like, this is my main character, and he's gonna, nope, he's gonna suck. Keep forgetting that. And then
Oh
they got the action scene, and then Subaru wins. Nope, that doesn't make
no,
sense. No, he
no,
loses.
nope, nope. He loses. Nope, nope. He says really horrible things to Amelia and
Ugh.
assumes that he owns her, and
That entitlement is awful. It's so cringy.
it's so cringy, it's so bad. But that's what makes this show good, again, is that
Yeah, the
they have a
growth.
character with all of these flaws and he has to figure it out. He has to figure it out. And I mean, these are
Yeah,
all things that he clearly like never dealt with in his old life, and here he like is really forced to do that, to deal with it and to become a better person.
yeah. I mean, it's like you said earlier. It's really refreshing to have a flawed human protagonist that we can absolutely get in the shoes of and relate to, because I mean we all have things that we feel and believe to be true, and we all have things that we want to be true even though we know it's wrong, and we have things that we think that are that we're entitled to, and things that we um believe that we should have. And yeah, I don't know, it's just it's a very believable character in a very
Mm-hmm.
unbelievable world, which I mean is one of the two main forms of comedy.
Yes.
When you take a real person and put them in a bizarre landscape.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And I mean, hey, if we're also talking about comedy, this show is hysterical, because comedy is tragedy over time, and this show is tragedy and a lot of time.
And a lot of time. Yes, sir. So good. So did you have anything else specific you wanted to make sure we touched on with ReZero?
Yeah, we talked a lot about suffering and tragedy and death and gore,
Mm-hmm.
and since we just talked about comedy, I do want to make it clear there are some phenomenally lighthearted and goofy moments in this show.
Yes.
And on top of like the goofy moments, there's also some really touching and heartwarming moments. And
Mm-hmm.
I think, Kelly, you said earlier, but the pacing of this show and the writing is so well done. They
Yes.
they do such a good job of balancing out the emotions and creating rises and falls in the scenes and in the characters' relationships. And it's not all blood and gore and sad and oof. There's um
Mm-hmm.
some real heart wrenchers in there too.
Absolutely. It is a whole mix of everything, and it's all done very well. Awesome. So this is the point in the podcast where I ask you, Jake, what have you been watching recently?
I have been watching Black Clover.
Ooh, I have heard of that one. How do you like it?
So far it's good. I think I'm in episode like 3 or 4.
Mm-hmm.
I finally caved because I had a buddy who is like obsessed with it, and he's like, "Have you started it? Have you started it?" And now I finally don't have an excuse not to be watching it. But it's really good. It kind of has a similar main character to Subaru in that there's this like world full of magic and wonder, and he's the one person in it that can't do the magic. Um,
Oh
so
no.
that's been interesting. I've also been watching an anime that I rediscovered. re
Hmm. Re.
um, yeah. It's called Muhyo and Roji's Bureau of Supernatural Investigation.
I have never heard of that. What is it about?
Um, so I'm gonna read you the little blurb. It says, "Are
Mm-hmm.
you a victim of unwanted spirit possession? Is there a ghost you need sent up and away, or down to burn for all eternity? If the answer is yes, then you need Muhyo and Roji, the experts in supernatural law. Serving justice to evil spirits is their specialty." Um, so you follow the two main characters, one of whom is a judge of spiritual law, and the other one is his like desk clerk apprentice who is like just getting into the supernatural field. And they take, almost like Sherlock Holmes, they take cases from people coming to them with supernatural problems,
Mm-hmm.
and they have to go and find the offending spirit in question and pass judgment. And I haven't gotten too far in the anime because I remember when I was first interacting with it, I was reading the manga version,
Yeah.
and it's spooky. um,
Ooh.
like I said, there's some like all good stuff. I guess there's contrast, but there's some real lighthearted moments, and then just some real grim, like gruesome stuff. Like I think my least favorite one that stuck with, like, you remember the scary stories to tell in the dark books.
Yes. Absolutely.
Um, all of those pictures from that book have stuck with me over the years and just like burned into my mind. And there is
Uh-huh.
one spirit in particular in that show. is the spirit of a girl who basically her best friend like stopped hanging out with her because she like was too clingy or she got too invested with the popular group or whatever. But her whole thing was that like they would hold hands, and then one day her friend got like tired of how clingy she was and like let go of her hand, and she got run over by a train. And so now she's this spirit that inhabits the train station, and she is this like centipede of like hundreds of hands, and it's just it's awful. It's so like ugh.
Yeah, it sounds creepy,
but it's good.
I'll have to add that to my continuously growing list of things.
I mean, Avatar: The Last Airbender was just added to Netflix, so I'm watching that again too.
Good. Me too. I'm in the middle of season 2 right now, enjoying it immensely, as always. Every time I watch it is a joy. Man, it's just such a good show, and I love rewatching it as well. I have also finally watched another isekai, and I know there are so many of them, but this one is also very different. Is Ascendance of a Bookworm. Have you heard of it?
No.
It is about a girl, which in and of itself is a different route through the isekai genre. And she gets reborn as she's a young woman who dies because all of her books fall on her. Like, very anime-esque. And so she is reborn as a child, like a very small child in this world where she is a poor peasant, and it's, very, classical, magic and old-timey knight feel. And she cannot find any books, and that's her only driving passion.
Oh.
And so it is her, like, at a very surface level, it is her quest to be surrounded by books. But what happens is and it's a slow burn, but it's really well done, is that so she's trying all these ways to, like, make her own books, or, all these things. She learned how to read, which is unusual for a peasant, and all these things. It does such a good job of showing, like, building this world, and, like, showing you the everyday little bits of it, and it's slowly, like, working up to, like, getting to understand the higher, like, socioeconomical, like, issues of the world. But, like, it starts out with just this little kid, like, trying to figure out how to make paper, so
Sure.
It's very fascinating. It's very enjoyable. It's just very cute and quaint, and it's something that is wholesome and good for the heart. It's very fun.
Interesting.
So, highly recommend if you maybe don't want to watch thriller, gore, isekai anime.
I don't know if I've recommended this on the show before, but if you're needing a break from ReZero or just another super lighthearted anime to watch Nichiju. It's just so good.
Ooh,
it's just so wholesome and fun and light, and just a great escape because there's like very little continuity. You can just jump into any episode and it's just a delight.
Thank you, Jake, so much for joining me and chatting a little bit about ReZero. Hopefully the second season comes out and we can chat about that as well.
Yeah, thanks for having me on again.
Absolutely. Always a pleasure. Thank you all so much for listening, and an extra special thank you to our patrons. The support we receive directly impacts how much content we are able to upload, and even $1 a month means so much to us. If you haven't already, follow us on Instagram and Facebook at Fanimated Podcast and Twitter at FanimatedP. We so appreciate the reviews on Apple Podcasts, and you can email us at fanimatedpodcast@gmail.com. The art for this podcast is done by myself. You can find me on Instagram and other sites at Candor Draw. That's KANDERDRAW. The music is provided by Purple Planet Music, and a huge thank you to Jake for joining me this week. Next episode, Emma and I are discussing Avatar: The Last Airbender, so stay tuned and stay animated.
I wanted to talk about Felix, but I figure it would be better if people were going to go watch it to be surprised by Felix.
Oh my gosh, yes, he's amazing. Oh yeah, for sure. So good. It's a good surprise. It's a fun surprise.
Felix is best boy.